is Valentine Mutatu. I'm a legal practitioner and I practice law based in Kwekwe. We are talking about elections in respect of the office of the President, elections in respect of members of the National Assembly, election in respect of local authorities, and also members of the Senate. Of course, those ones are elected on the basis of the system of proportional representation. So in 2023, we are going to have those harmonized elections where Zimbabweans will have an opportunity to elect the new government or new leadership in respect of almost every office which can be contested in an election. People should register to vote, and they should also participate in the election. It is very important, it is a constitutional right, and people should just have this habit of always wanting to vote so that you are able to participate in the election of leadership of the country. Some people always complain that the elections were rigged, or some other explanations, or we have lost as a party, or my preferred candidate has lost. But when you then look closely, you will notice that this person is not actually a registered voter, or he may be a registered voter but has not actually participated in the voting process. So my advice, or my prayer is that Zimbabweans or citizens of Zimbabwe must register to vote and determine the leadership at all levels, from local authorities, at parliament level, and also at presidential level. Zimbabwe is a constitutional democracy, and generally it means that the citizens of Zimbabwe must determine or chart their way forward, their own way forward. So if someone dies or is recalled from parliament or from council, they have to participate in the replacement of that particular individual, not only in respect of by-elections, but elections generally, whether they are harmonized elections or any other election. Individuals or citizens of the country must participate, so that they also determine their future, they determine the type of leadership that they have. It could be at ward level, at constituency level, or at national level. In terms of our law, when a representative, neither council, local authority, or in the Senate is not available for either death or is recalled by the political party, there is supposed to be a replacement of that individual, and the process of replacement of that individual is by way of a by-election. So these are elections that are held pursuant to the office falling vacant, either by death, by resignation, or by recalling, or any other cause. Democracy, we are simply saying the majority must have a say in what our constitution says. If there is to be a decision which would affect the majority, they must find a way of participating in that particular decision. So in simple, the decision of the majority must carry the day. So in the context of elections, the reason why people go to vote is because they want to decide by way of a majority who should be in power, who should be their leaders. This is why you would notice that when it comes to the office of the president, when you are talking about the election in respect of the office of the president, they don't just talk about a simple majority. The law says there must be absolute majority, which means we must have at least 50% plus one vote of the total number of people who have participated in that election. So it's a serious issue. So if for instance, there is no candidate who has garnered 50% plus one vote, this is why we then have to go for what is called an election runoff, so that we establish who has the absolute majority. So the issue of majority is very key. It is used in the election of councillors. You must have a simple majority. It is also used in the election of members of the National Assembly. we must have a majority. So it is very important. This is why we say we live in a constitutional democracy. The majority must always have at the center stage. If you look at the constitution, in most provisions, we say parliament is constituted by the people of Zimbabwe, and this, when we say executive authority, is exercised by the people of Zimbabwe, and so that concept is important. Even when you look at the preamble to the constitution, with the people of Zimbabwe. So it shows the importance of the position of the people of Zimbabwe in any legal discourse. When we say elections must be free and fair, we are not inventing anything. We are simply restating what the Constitution says. The Constitution is very categorical that people of this country should enjoy free, fair and regular elections. And by free and fair, we are simply saying there is the absence of ills or malpractices that may affect the outcome of that particular election. For instance, political parties must be able to assemble, they must be able to exercise freedom of expression, they must be able to campaign freely, to associate freely. These are political rights in the Constitution. So, be able to have access, equal access to the public media, they must be covered in a fair manner as compared to other political parties. So, if these things are absent, then the elections may not satisfy that formula of saying, are they really free and fair? If those things are absent, then the elections can be described as a sham. But we have a very good infrastructure in terms of our law for the holding of free and fair elections. But maybe people may actually then abuse that kind of infrastructure which is there. And in my view, there may be little requirement to change the current framework of the law, because it is sufficient to ensure that we have free, fair and credible. The legal framework, the institutional framework in the country, what is there is sufficient to ensure that we are able to hold free, fair and credible elections. Of course, we have had arguments to say the law has to be changed, law reforms in terms of the electoral, the electoral laws or the Electoral Act. Yeah, there is merit in those arguments, but my view is that the law as it is can guarantee free, fair, credible. Maybe the issue of transparent elections may become debatable, where some people believe that maybe the election management board maybe is not doing enough in ensuring transparency as far as the electoral process is concerned. In respect of recourse by political parties is rather twofold. The first one is that political parties should be allowed to recall members that have either defected or have ceased to serve the political party's ideology. That should be allowed. Then the second view is that the citizens should also be able to participate in the process of recalling. Currently in Zimbabwe, the recalling process is problematic because it's just done at a political party level, where certain individuals, they just sit down and discuss that our member X is no longer serving our interests, and the letter is generated, it goes to the Speaker of Parliament, and there is a recall in respect of members of the National Assembly. If it is a recall in respect of councillors, the letter is just sent to the Minister of Local Government, who then writes a letter to say, so and so you have been recalled around this law. And in my view, there is need to amend the appropriate provision to make sure that at least there is some involvement of members of the society or members of that particular constituency or ward where someone is recalled, to say, for instance, that you need a minimum threshold of, say, 60% of the people must agree with the recall, instead of leaving everything in the hands of politicians. My view is that the recent recalls that we have witnessed in the country were not based on differences in ideology, but I would suggest that they were based on malice. Someone would simply say, I'm no longer in agreement with another member of the political party, and the person will simply write a letter to the responsible authority for the recall of that particular individual. But there are also other problems that are associated with this process. One of them is that in terms of our law, we have the right to be heard before any adverse decision is made against you. We have read, and what we have heard, it would appear the right has not been observed. Someone is simply recalled. You hear it for the first time that you are being recalled because you have ceased to belong to a particular political party, which is wrong. Because in the process of doing that, your rights are also being violated. The way that citizens can do is to lobby for an amendment to that constitutional provision which allows for recalls. Otherwise, without that, you cannot do anything, unless, in my view, if the affected individual is the one who is challenging violation of his particular rights in the process of recall, like the right to administrative justice or the right to a fair trial, where someone should at least know that I'm facing these allegations, is given opportunity to contest the validity of those allegations. And if you are then found to have violated certain principles or ideologies of that political party, then you can then be satisfied that the recall is proper. Otherwise, for citizens, the only relief is by a way of an amendment to the applicable provision of the law. I can't say off from the head, but there are countries which have such a provision. It's a cumbersome provision, I would want to admit, because before you make that decision, you need to then establish, or you need to do more like a visit where you consult the affected members. For instance, if it is a ward in respect of or councillors, or a constituency in respect of members of the National Assembly, where you have to then say, can you please maybe complete a particular document to say you are agreeable to the proposed recall. It's a cumbersome process, but I'm sure it is necessary, because when we are talking about democracy, these individuals were involved in the election of that particular individual. But when that person is being withdrawn from parliament, these individuals are not being considered. So in order to provide sufficient checks and balances, I would say this is necessary, and this is, from the experience that we have had as a country, it is actually an urgent issue which Parliament should look at. The best constitutions in the world. That's my personal belief. The one that was that came into force in May 2013. It is now public knowledge that it has been amended twice. We have amendment number 1 and amendment number 2. So is it a good thing that we should keep on amending it in light of the fact that it is fairly a new constitution in this country? My view is that we have to learn from the experiences that we have gone through regarding the recalls. If those who are given the authority to recall were exercising their powers reasonably, we would not need to amend the constitution. But the only reason why we have to amend this law is because people are abusing it. There are no sufficient checks and balances, in my view, and the only way we can do it is by way of an amendment. If only we had people who are exercising their power without malice, we would not be talking about amending the constitution.